Ambridge in 40 minutes.
You can grow these lovely pinguiculars or butterworts which will catch the small insects like gnats. The lovely Venus's flytrap, fascinating to see them closing in on a housefly. Or those tall pitcher plants, long tube, those too will catch houseflies and wasps, but they will not attract bees or butterflies. This is the way to grow them. 2 or 3 different kinds.
It's only me. Gran. Peg gave me a lift from church. She couldn't stop. Her and that man of hers are going off for the day. It's all right for some. Morning, Brian.
Morning.
I'd like my dinner early.
What a good idea.
I'm glad you think so, because I want you to go with me.
Well, we'll be off then, darling. See you in half an hour or so.
Right.
Come along, Alice.
Where are they going? I thought you said he was taking the baby for a walk.
I did.
Well, I'm not senile yet. They were car keys in his hand. I thought he wasn't meant to be driving
Oh,
yet.
but he's not. Brian? Brian!
Oh, the village of Ambridge. Yes. Where is it? Well, it's just a figment of my own imagination. It doesn't exist at all. It's sort of somewhere in the west of Birmingham, within about 40 or 50 miles west of Birmingham. It could be in Warwickshire, Worcestershire, Gloucestershire, Herefordshire, that kind of area.
We better find out where the cricket club is then.
Yes,
because according to this map, it's not in the right place.
We've got a terrible problem here. Because, you see, the cricket club is meant to be...
Now, the cricket club's there. That's the pavilion Jack built for the cricket club, isn't it?
Well, yes, that's right, because it's round... It's
But there's no square there because the golf club's all round it. Because I always thought the cricket team played on the green.
Well, they did originally until Jack bought the... built them.
Yeah, well, they can't still play there, can it? It'd be a hell of a long way to jog all the way around there to play cricket.
Absolute
I'm
nonsense.
concerned about that.
Do you know where the cricket club is? Most extraordinary.
The period when we're sort of approaching Armageddon, it's nice to have something nice and ordinary going on. I time my evening meal so that if I put my coffee maker on when I get the ticks for 7, it'll be just ready when they get to the weather, and just after the weather we get the archers.
Hey, how's it sounding over there, darling?
Oh, fine, Eddie.
I don't generally listen to the Sunday omnibus, partly because I've generally heard most of it, and partly because it coincides with my church service. And I find the BBC very anti-clerical in these matters.
I know so. Smell it.
Oh, seems okay to me.
It's off. Nigel? Nigel Pargeter. Over here, if you please. You'll take a sniff of this cream, please.
Oh, look, Mr. Woolley, there's a table. I'll go and bag it, shall I?
Oh, good idea.
Those scones look nice.
From a shop.
Really?
I mean, this sounds awfully snobbish, but I tried to think not only of the story and enjoy the romance of it, but to watch how the structure of it has changed. And the change in the balance between the length of scenes, for example, and fewer people being employed at any given time, which one can justify, I think, on sort of Aristotelian principles, but may simply be the result of financial stringency, as Punch once happily put it. I just don't know.
Oh, confound it. I've lost an earring.
Where? In here?
No, I have a feeling it came off as I was getting out of the car.
Oh, well, look, I'll go and have a look.
Oh, no, you carry on and get the drinks. I'm almost sure I'll find it on the floor of the car. Shan't be a moment.
Right, dear.
I feel rather undressed without it.
Oh, dear.
Listening to the vintage Archers tapes, well, they seem very stilted. It might just be changes of fashion or the way they had to do radio in those days, but they seemed extremely stilted. They didn't seem to be talking like real people talk. Of course, maybe real people talk like that then. Who knows?
Hey? Hello, what? That's great.
Oh, do come quickly! The stables are on fire!
What?
Now, I'd had a request from the fire service to do something about available water on farms So I thought, well, we could get that in if we had Grace caught in a fire. And so this was agreed. I mean, we shouldn't burn her to death. We wanted her to live a bit, you know, we wanted to get out of it a little bit, but we wanted her to die afterwards. So we were able to get the story, we were able to satisfy the fire service, and we got rid of Grace at the same time. It was a very dramatic situation. Very dramatic.
Oh, crikey, the heat!
Get some water, Carol!
Oh, my God, this is ghastly. Get out of it, quickly! It's an inferno in there.
Oh. Look, she's going back into the stable.
What? No, Grace! No, don't do it!
She's going in after midnight.
Grace! Grace! Grace, come back! The roof's collapsing! Look at that roof!
Horrible!
Bill, you madman!
Don't let him!
Grace! Grace! Oh, my God! Grace!
The death of Grace. Oh, that was just hilarious. I mean, it's a legendary thing, isn't it? The death of Grace, and everything. So I wish I'd been there to listen to the death of Grace. That was one of the big moments of broadcasting. And then when you hear it...
I can remember it very well, very well. And it all happened again. I played the vintage cassette. It was on a Sunday. And I stood at the kitchen sink with the tears streaming down my face, reliving all those years ago, you know, as if it was happening again. To think you never forget.
The Archers is the longest-running soap opera in the world, 38 years without a break. The celebrations for the 10,000th edition began with the naming of a train. It took the cast on a festive ride to the studios in Birmingham for a special anniversary dinner.
We're washing them up as fast as we can, Conchita. My first read-through was amazing. I joined the programme in February, and sitting round me were all these voices I'd heard for years and years and years coming out of people.
You don't fancy doing a swap with my hat and your chain?
No. I have, in fact, handled ferrets when I was young.
Really?
Oh, sure.
You've actually held... I've held a couple of ferrets, but I've never put one day in my trousers.
I want to know how long you've been having an affair with Brian. Oh, a year? 2 years? Jennifer, please! Just leave me alone. What more do you want? Blood?
Look, this business with Caroline, it meant nothing to me. I didn't plan it, I didn't even want it, but she virtually threw herself at me.
Poor Brian. It must be so awful for you, being so irresistible.
I went to the Royal Show, and I was sitting there, being Brian Aldridge, that's because we do all that, and this man came out to me and he said, "Caroline with you?" So I said, "What? You got Caroline with you this evening?" I said, "I don't think I know what you mean." He said, "Yes, you do." I said, "If you mean what I think you mean, you'll be hearing from my solicitor on Monday." And he went, "Cry," and he fled. And he went off to the bar, and I could see him in the distance going, "He really is Brian Aldridge. Why didn't this man come out saying, don't be so silly?" Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
It's great to meet you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm the luckiest one of them all because, you see, I always say I had an affair with Caroline and Betty Tucker, but in real life I'm married to Shula, so, you know, that's why I've always got a smile on my face. The hardest thing was having the affair with Betty Tucker when I fancied my cleaner, which I thought was always slightly unsavory, but I was deep into hepatitis at the time, bright yellow, and sat in a chair like a very, very old man, going, "Oh, Betty, very pretty ankles you've got." Oh, God, it was exhausting. That was acting.
Charles's real wife, Judy, is also in the serial. She plays Shula Archer, for years the romantic pin-up of Ambridge. Shula's marriage to the dependable Mark Hebden was the most glamorous of all the Archer weddings.
I, Shula Mary,
take thee, Mark Charles Timothy,
take thee, Mark Charles Timothy,
to my wedded husband.
to my wedded husband.
Mark and Shula when they got married. And I was told that we were going to be taken down there in a mini cab, you know, and when we got there, nearly had a fit when they knew how old they'd got to make me up to look. Oh, about 80, you know. So anyway, they made me up. I had this gorgeous hat, you know, and they powdered my hair at the side and everything. And nobody had told me who was taking the photographs. I had no idea at all. They were just photographs, you see. And I walked in, and there was Patrick Litchfield. I nearly fell through the floor, you see. And I sort of said, Patrick Litchfield. And everybody saying, yes, didn't you know?
I don't look remotely like anybody's image of Shula. Initially, you know, people come up and say, oh, you're not a bit like I imagined. You're much older, aren't you? And one woman at a fete once said to me, oh, I didn't think Shula would have grey hair, which is all rather tricky, but it's getting easier now because...
I think that when you got married to Mark and Lord Litchfield took those photographs, that although you were a mother of 3 and 15 or so years older than the character, because you're a very attractive person, doesn't matter how old you are, he was a good photographer, and you thought through, you became Shula, and really those photographs did you credit. They were great, and I don't think... I mean, Judy's...
I just thought it proved the camera can lie.
Well, I think that, I think you do yourself down, Sandra, but understandably, you're sensitive about people going up all the time saying...
No, it's not really that. I just don't want to disappoint people. I think it's important, this willing suspension of disbelief.
He had 4 glasses. I'll send you 3 glasses.
Fetch another one.
I wonder, my dear friend here, wonders if you have any dry white wine. You are awful, giving them an awful lot of trouble. You know, here they are practically kidding themselves, pouring out champagne by the gallon.
More coffee, Phil?
Yes, please.
David?
No thanks, Mum. Just finished this and I'll be off.
Where will you be today, dear?
Oh, I thought we'd start on Coombell, if that's all right with you, Dad.
Yes.
I have discovered that I have been taken over by this mythical creature. I think I am quite other than she, but the solidness of her has taken me over. So I find that my rather frivolous persona is disappearing. Every year it gets less and less, and I become this rather earnest, stolid person.
Who is it? Emilia, I brought you up some tea.
Oh, thanks, Mum.
I was making some for Phil, and I felt sure you could both use a cup.
Thanks very much.
I really hadn't carved this career out for myself at all. I rather wanted to be a butterfly. But I find I'm not.
You are feeling the strain, aren't you?
Just a bit, yes. It's not that I don't like having Rose here, but with Kenton and Elizabeth as well.
Yeah, no sign of any of them moving out.
She's gone, you see. I have to wait for my next life before I can come back and be as frivolous and a great actress and all the things that I'd like, rich, beautiful. I mean, here I am. I mean, you have only to look at me.
Here comes the light. More coffee, Phil?
Yes, please.
I've been given a whole family on paper with all the problems of being a father and all the reactions. And then I can just go home to my bachelor pad and get on with my own life.
Whoops, what's that?
Yes, I have a voice that's 6'2" and slim and good-looking and bronzed, but as you see, I'm not. Now that doesn't go down very well with the public. They want you to be Phil Archer, and it must be difficult if you look like the characters you play, which happened to the original Dan and Doris, for example, and dear old Gwen. Over the years, many years, 30-odd years. And we were very close friends, and I saw her literally disappear. She disappeared into this character.
They really believe I am Doris Archer, and I am. I mean, I am Doris Archer now, after 27 years, and it makes it quite easy to come to work, you see, because I feel I'm going to be my other self.
It's the same with me. I mean, all the shopkeepers say, "Good morning, Dan." I mean, wherever I go.
love, and I reckon Tom must have heard as well. He's ringing the bell so all Ambridge will know.
Oh, Dan, you do say some daft things sometimes. Open the window so we can hear.
Aye, right, old love.
And in fact, now we decided on the Christmas present. For
yes,
the,
yes, the
cricket
tea
club.
urn. We're going to
Tea
buy
urn.
the
With
tea urn.
poor old Martha, she's for years had that
leaking,
tea urn.
dreadful thing.
And so we decided a tea urn. So
They
we
can't
said-
cost that much, can they? We'll club
What do you
together
think?
and do that.
25?
25, 30 quid.
Doesn't matter. Try to do it here. As long as we've got to keep Martha happy. She works a 6-day week. And does she have it on Sundays now?
I don't think so. No,
Just
no,
for
she
the
has
papers?
that. No, she doesn't do papers.
Who does the papers?
I'm not absolutely sure. Harry used to sell them on his round, didn't he? The post.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he's.
No, she won't open on Saturday. She told Jack that quite.
But she was open on Bank Holiday Monday.
Well, you didn't like that.
I do rather like Nelson Gabriel and Mrs. Perkins because they are very definite characters and also because they are beautifully articulate. I can hear every word they say. Whereas Joe Grundy's mouth is full of dough. He's got rid of it a little more recently, but there was a time when he was quite unintelligible. Eddie Grundy, Clary at the moment I cannot hear at all. But admittedly I'm getting a bit deaf, so I must confess that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen and children, I'd like to welcome you here to Inkbarrow Raise the Roof Festival. And I'd also like to welcome our guests, Alan Devereux, Sid Perks of the Archers, who's kindly agreed to open our festival today, and also Councillor and Mrs. Ron Cartwright, the chairman of Wychavon District Council. Do have a lovely day. The weather has been ordered specially for you. Alan Devereux.
Right.
Well, shall we?
Oh dear.
Oh my gosh. Was that planned? Right.
That's the first poo part.
Could you stop the band? Stop the band.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a home from home for me here, really. This is, somebody was saying, how long have you been in Ambridge? 28 years, would you believe? I can hardly believe it. 28 years. Back to horse the other day. It was a lovely horse, lovely. 15 hands. No feet, just 15 hands, you know. Back to the 5 to 2, it came at 6:30. It... Now, what we want to do is raise a lot of money this afternoon, as you know. What's the target? £75,000, I believe. Oh, I'd call it 80,000. Just, I can see you're all millionaires at a glance. So what I want you to do is dig your hands down deep into your pockets and have a good time, first and foremost, but spend some money as well because we want to save the roof of the village hall. Is that it?
At the end of January, I left my full-time job. I was a tax inspector. I've never even lived in the country. I've been to the country in the past, but I don't really have any connection with agriculture at all. When you start a scene, you have to indicate to the listeners where it is, which you can't always do just by sound effects. It helps sometimes if you just throw in the odd phrase about sheep's scab or the slurry lagoon or baling the hay or something. So you have to get something in the first 2 or 3 lines that'll indicate what they're doing. Like, oh, I always hate this job. You mean you don't like dipping the sheep? You know, you've got to put stupid things in like that, which, if you're doing it on the television, it would be obvious to everyone they were dipping the sheep.
Oh, no, not my geraniums. Mrs. Snow, whatever's going on? Oh, Betty, thank heavens. Help me, please. I can't get Persephone out. Who? The goat, Persephone. I managed to take Demeter back to the paddock, but Persephone just won't budge.
I don't think life would be very comfortable if it was like a soap opera, would it? And everybody knowing everybody else's business and, you know, poking their noses in and being related to each other. I think it would be a bit hectic.
Mrs. Snell, I hope you don't mind me dropping minute. Oh, my goodness, have you fed barcode?
Goats.
Goats? Looks more like hurricane. How many?
Just the two.
Everything's under control now. Actually, Carrie, I did want a word. Eddie's not busy, is he?
Just to build a tiny little hut for the goats, I pay, of course.
It's part of my life now, the Archers. It's that type of programme, really. You get hooked on it and you just can't stop listening to it.
If I miss it, I don't get too worried about it. But with Jane, if she misses it, she really goes mad, you know.
Do you? Goes mad. Really? Yes. I knew the 10,000th episode was coming up. I wanted to do something very special, because they're very special people. And, well, I thought, what about a cake? And I explained to Chris what I wanted, gave him an idea, told him what it was, a village, a farm. And I think he did them proud, really. And, well, I was just so pleased when it was all made.
Fans of the long-running radio soap opera The Archers are going to be able to meet some of the characters whose lives they follow every day. Archers Weekends are being started, offering a coach ride into the countryside and encounters with some very familiar voices.
The fans paid almost £100 each for a weekend in Archer country, and even their coach ride to Ambridge was eventful.
The first time that we went on one of these weekends, the coach driver said, oh, we're lost, you know.
Well, that was very funny.
We're really lost, he said, and he stopped the coach. Then he said, oh, there's somebody down here sitting on the wall. He said, I'll ask him. So he drove further along, and then this weird-looking guy with a funny hat on was sitting on the wall. Turned out to be Eddie.
Eddie Grundy.
And of course he jumps on the coach and says, oh yes, I know where that place is, you know. He says, I'll direct you, you know.
He's so funny.
You all right, my darling? Hello, Peter, all right?
Are you going to tell us the way, then?
Yeah, well, you just go up there.
That's one nice thing about it, isn't it? You know, they join in on these weekends, the actors and the actresses, and they actually play the part.
There are 3 rooms in the... I hope there might be a cup of tea and a little cake. Hello, hello.
They really do a little scene, you know,
Yeah, it's incredible,
when
actually.
she wants to borrow the car and the mother says you can't borrow the car, and it's really true to life, and it makes it really more believable than you can imagine, because you think, well, you know, this is really the Archers, that we are actually here with the Archers. Isn't it, Jane?
Oh, it's marvellous.
And then it was time for the cast to wave goodbye and for the fans to go back to the real world, where the Archers only exist on the radio.
Of course, my ambition is to work with the Archers, but I know that'll never... I would like to have done even maybe a little scene with them, but I know that couldn't be possible, obviously, because I can't read the script.
And you're going to put that down on the claim form, are you? No, record harvest, I reckon. Before that fire came along and destroyed it, leaving no trace of what it was really like, eh? So if we put that loss in at, say, 2,000, here. And if we also say that Tony Archer had agreed to pay us 400 for the contracting, you know what this is, don't you, Dad? Yes, a fiddle. It's blooming marvellous, that's what it is. Oh, we could make thousands out of this and get a new combine thrown in at all. Yeah.
Who's there?
They say that I'm a waster, they say I'm dreamy. They say my head's a pair of horns with nothing in between. Well, lads, here we are. I don't care what the people may say. Badger, let them make their silage, I'll be making hay. Hey!
Ah, I'll see you in a minute. There's something very important to just develop. Evening, Chairman Brian. Badger. I like the new T-shirts. How many thousand have we got?
He always gets himself into trouble and he gets into scrapes, and I like the character. He said the B word on the Archers. I think he was the first person to actually say that.
Which particular B word?
Bloody.
I listen to you every day, you know, if I'm at home.
You're a darling. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Am I as good looking as you thought?
You're better. I thought you were a right twit.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm a right twit.
You're Johnny's fan club.
I love Wind in the Willows. I love Toad Hall, and I really would love to play Toad somewhere. I played him once at school and fell in love with the characters, and I fell in love with Toad and Badger and Ratty and Moley. And the funny thing is that my little house is called Mole End. My ambition is to have a house called Toad Hall, but the size of it, I thought, no, I can't call it Toad Hall. It's going to have to be Mole End.
That's kind of you, thank you.
Come on, Mum.
No, I shall put 3 kisses on here. Well, that means I've got to have 3 in real life.
Oh, thank you.
Whoa, how about that? When Eddie got married to Clary, they used this pub as a kind of publicity pub, saying this is where Eddie met Clary, who worked behind the bar. And Eddie sort of chatted her up and eventually asked her out and eventually got married. When the Eddie Grundy fan club started, they said, we'd like to have a place where we can go. Can you think of anywhere? And I said, well, let's go to the pub where Eddie was supposed to have met Clary. He says, oh, yeah, all right. So we went there. And I met this barmaid behind the bar and said, oh, she's nice. And I eventually married her. Sounds really, really corny, but it really was a kind of love at first sight thing, and I really thought, oh, isn't that girl wonderful? And it totally was nothing to do with, I'm sure I didn't see Clary there, you know, my character was taking me over.
You'll get your way back.
We're going to be all very jolly when we get there.
Hopefully.
More now.
Here comes the light. It's very kind of you, Kenton. Isn't it, David?
What? I couldn't think why on earth they gave credit to agricultural storylines in Anthony Parkin, because there wasn't one. The programme was all about the love life of a variety of couples, and I just would be in Surbiton. No, I think it's very well handled, and how should I say, crucial, what I call love scenes. You seem to get extremely good script writers. I don't know if you remember Sid Perks and Polly Mead's first night in the house lent by Mr. Woolley. A beautiful conversation between 2 newly married couples. Beautifully handled, ending up with the word bed. Which is, of course, the way the evening was meant to end, but I thought it was extraordinarily well done. And there have been others.
Oh. Isn't this good?
All cosy in our own little room.
Just you and me in peace and quiet.
And the telly.
And the telly.
On the other hand, we could just go to bed and read.
Give us a
Well,
bit
I'll
of
tell
street
you what,
cred.
can we definitely lose Uncle Piers?
Yes,
oh,
definitely
yeah,
lose Uncle Piers.
compromise.
It's just that
this
Lose
bit of, on the
Piers,
other
keep the
hand, we
bed
could just
and
go
lose
to
the
bed
happy.
and
Okay.
read is actually quite, I think.
Because
Wait a
otherwise
minute, if we
David
have-
will never, ever get his rocks off.
If we had...
My dear, it's 2 bedrooms, you know, reasonable bedrooms. But they're beautiful, aren't they? £205,000.
Daisy thinks she's a cat.
Yeah.
Because she's only grown up with cats.
Does she
So she's
really?
convinced she's a cat.
Mm.
Because you know how cats go like that with their front paws and
Yeah.
stretch their back.
I came out of the studio having done a scene written by William Smethurst, who was an exceptionally good writer. But for some strange reason, I mean, I'd obviously fluffed or done something crazy, because I came out not knowing he was actually here, sitting in the green room, and I said, I don't know what it was about that, because usually his scenes they trip off the tongue, and I don't know what it was. It just, somehow didn't flow. And the next time I got one of Wicked William's scripts, Jennifer was unblocking drains at Home Farm saying, oh, Brian, it's not flowing. Oh, come on. Oh, it just won't flow. Why won't it flow? And this went on and on and on, and I thought, never again am I going to be even slightly critical.
all over her bedroom floor. And we now have to have a new carpet.
Jane?
Yes. No, she just, I don't know, it was excitement and the sun, too many crisps and...
So she was sick all over Wittering? Godfrey was the script editor, and I mean, his name was Godfrey, and we did call him God. And he came in one day and said, I have all of your futures in my hand, and just remember it.
Well, I did lay the law down a bit, you see, because I was the only one who knew what the whole thing was about, and you know, if they didn't get it right, I had the blame. And so I was very insistent. Oh, yes, I was a bit tough. I know that.
We do only get an episode-to-episode contract, and there's a lot of fingers crossed in our cast that it's not going to happen to us. The black spot. Huh.
Now, what exactly was I supposed to be looking at in here?
Oh, the cow.
The cow, I see. Yes, she looks a bit odd.
She goes berserk if there's a sudden noise.
Joe, what are you doing?
I'll see what she does if you make a noise.
No, I don't think that's a very good idea, Joe.
You see? Get off, get
Oh, my God, Joe!
Get out of the way! She'll have you against that wall! Now, back!
Oh, my God!
Well, I think it was hugely excessive what they did to me. But I simply got my agent to write them a letter to say that I was doing another children's television series, which I've been doing, a series called Look and Read for 14 or 15 years now, and
Oh, no, not in Widge. It's an awful place. It's nothing but tricks and traps and widgets.
so Judy came back one day and said, I've had a message from the producers that you're going to have severe brain damage, but think you'll live.
Obviously, it was a very tragic accident, so I wrote Jennifer a letter, as you know, and I'm the brother. And sent it to Birmingham Royal Infirmary, and got a birthday card with an acknowledgement on the other.
You got one last week?
Yeah.
And then I had the lot of scripts, because, you see, having got some episodes and thinking, oh, whoopee, I'm well again now, you see. I'm lying out in the garden last week, reading the scripts for the following week, as every good actor does, you see, you know. Jennifer keeps saying, Brian, you're doing too much. Slow down. You've been very... Oh, I'm all right. I was fussing and all this. Page after page of all this. And I'm out in the fields having a picnic with Jennifer and Peggy. I feel fine, really. Would you like some more wine, Peggy?
Oh, this is nice, isn't it? Do you remember when I used to take you and Lillian and Tony out to Brookfield?
To help Grandad with the harvest. We didn't have white wine and real salmon in our picnics then.
Hardly.
I turned over the page and it says, Brian falls to the ground and has an epileptic fit. Good God.
Brian, what's the matter?
I don't know.
Brian! Oh, my God!
I hope that it will sound like somebody having a fit, but there's only so much you can do in radio, you know. That's up to the listener. I think the writer had quite a lot of trouble writing an epileptic fit out of vision.
It was not easy. It's probably one of the most difficult things you could be asked to write for the radio. Well, we're always being asked to write difficult things. I mean, I've been asked recently to write bell ringing and bridge. And when I asked, I don't do either bell ringing or bridge. And when I asked somebody who knew about both of them, I said, what do people say when they're doing these things? She said, well, they don't say anything. And both these sports, or whatever they are conducted in total silence, and you're supposed to write a radio script around them. But the epileptic fit was even worse.
Brian!
Oh, my God! Brian!
Don't panic, Jennifer.
Oh, don't panic! Mummy's having a fit! Oh, no! It's all right, Kate. Kate, don't worry.
Jennifer, take all the picnic things out of his way. Quickly, Jennifer. Kate, run over to Gary, will you? Tell him to get down to the house and call an ambulance.
Oh, now, Kate! Hurry, please!
No, Jennifer, stand back.
next door to me used to live a very good gardener, and one day he was collecting champagne bottles. And I said, Bill, what are you doing that for? And he said, well, I'm going to plant plants in these bottles. I'm going to knock a hole in the bottom because a champagne bottle has a dimple. He said, and I'm going to insert the plant in there. He said, and hang it upside down, and you'll have flowers which you can hang on the wall, and it'll be a novelty.
Somebody came on the phone and said, oh, you entered a competition. So I said, yes. I said, which one is it? You know, because I enter a lot of competitions but never think about it. So they said, it's the one about the archers.
And when I drove home from work, Barb was waiting at the top of the drive, and she was jumping up and down. I was late that night because the traffic was heavy, and when I got home, she couldn't wait to tell me. You know, I never had been able to back the car down the drive. We had to stop in the street.
No, I didn't sleep Tuesday night, didn't sleep Wednesday night. I still couldn't believe it. I said to Roy, I just hope they don't sit me next to the Grundys. You know, I wanted anybody else but the Grundys. I don't know why. And I got there, and who should I be sitting by? But Teddy Grundy. And opposite me on the table was Joe. And they were the two nicest people you could ever meet. Absolutely different to what they are on the radio. And I was disappointed he hadn't got his hat on. Or with him. He hadn't even got it with him. That's the first thing I said, where's your hat? Just like that. And of course he mimicked me back.
You had a play for Lily, right?
Jelly didn't have it.
He tried.
Oh, well, he's trying. No, he's always had a little bit of a thing.
Be clever. Be clever. They're bringing the red wine now. Put that in there.
Hello.
You had to keep pinching yourself to think, did it really happen?
And the wine, every time your glass became empty, they just filled it up again. And it's a good job we were staying at a hotel and we didn't have to drive home, because I don't think we'd have made it. So that was great. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and it was, you know, one of the highlights of the year for me to just go out like that. And it was a wedding anniversary as well. I didn't have to bother to go out for, you know, I mean, saving all round. It was great.
What else can I do but invite your applause? The very first producer's assistant, Valerie Shryan, the very first producer, Tony Shryan, and the originator and the creator of the Archers all those years ago, Godfrey Baisley.
The programme isn't the one I invented at all. But it's right, because the whole pattern of life in the countryside has changed. Farming's changed, the villages have changed, the people have changed. The real old country folk now can't live in the country because town people come and live there instead. They pay vast prices. Well, here, look at me. I'm now living in a bungalow, you know, virtually in a builder's yard, instead of being out in the country, which I've done all my life. But here we are. You know, I mean, it's nice to have close neighbours now at my age.
Brian, why did it have to happen? When things were going so well, too.
You warned me not to do too much, didn't you?
Well, I just thought...
Well, now it's happened. We'll be ready for it next time.
Oh, don't say that. There won't be a next time.
I've got to face it, Jenny. I've had one fit. There may be others.
Yes, but they'll give you drugs. If you're careful, you'll be fine.
Wish I could believe that. I really wish I could. Oh, Jenny. I seem to be losing control over my whole life.